That's how Libs of TikTok was born. They were shocked out of their minds. People had never seen this.
For sure.
You were basically a leftist, right?
100%. I escaped feminism by the skin of my teeth.
You have built for us a window into America's culture.
It kind of felt like I was warning people.
If you teach your children there's only two genders, you are going to be potentially arrested and have your children taken away from you.
The people who are benefiting from feminism are the big corporations.
It doesn't help the women.
We're in a population collapse. People are not having children.
Oh, it's a cult.
Militant feminists.
It's a complete
It's a cult. It's a religion.
We can't afford to sit on the sidelines and hope that the problem's going to go away. The two of you women are some of my favorite people on social media. I think that you're moving mountains. Libs of TikTok, Peachy, Keenan. I just cannot wait for people to hear what you have to say. Just briefly, I like to call us troublemakers, but we're causing trouble in the best way possible in places where trouble needs to be had. And, they call us all kinds of names, domestic extremist. I'm a white Christian nationalist Barbie. As you can see, I own it proudly. And I think that's another thing about the two of you is that you're not afraid of the attacks. And I think that once you free yourself from being afraid of the labels, you actually become free and you're able to live truth and speak truth. You're able to show and tell. And so this is going to be such a fascinating and important conversation. And I think people are going to learn so much about it. So let's start with you, Chaya. I know people would love to know a little bit more about Libs of TikTok. Who are you and how did you start this account, Libs of TikTok, which is probably one of the fastest growing social media accounts I've seen?
So I grew up right here in LA. And I have no background in journalism or in politics or in media. I was a real estate agent in New York. And then COVID happened and, the industry basically shut down. I found myself back in LA, just kind of waiting it out. And that's when I started being like, maybe I should start paying attention to what is happening around me, to what is happening in DC. There are these people who are making these decisions for me that I have no income and that I can't leave my home, that I can't go to synagogue. And I feel like something's wrong with that. I started following the news. I had never followed the news before.
Were you like a political person?
No. I was never political. My family was never political. I just started following, paying attention. And I noticed that these TikTok videos would go viral on Twitter. And it was mainly COVID related, the dancing nurses and randomly there would be these TikToks. Now you go on Twitter and all you see are TikToks. But back then, there was just a few random and I was like, oh, let me go see what TikTok is. So I downloaded it and I was amazed. It was very entertaining. It's very addicting. And I was like, oh, these videos are really funny. So I started just sharing basically COVID related videos. So it was people getting kicked out for not wearing masks and people putting up Fauci statues in their homes and the vaccine songs. I'm sure everyone remembers
Good old
those.
days. I'm going to get PTSD.
Yeah.
That's like the days we tried to forget, but we will never forgive.
Yeah, exactly. But you have to admit the videos are funny. I mean, they're entertaining. I mean, at least I thought that. So I was like, I got to share the wealth. So I started posting this to Twitter and people really liked it. Because it is very funny and entertaining. The more people liked it, the more I posted. So in just a second, I was just like, oh, they're Libs of TikTok.
Why Libs? Why Libs?
Because they were Libs. It's videos of Libs from TikTok. So it's just Libs of TikTok.
So there's no branding session or anything like that. You're just it came to you.
There was no think tank and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars
consulting
and a marketing company.
Amazing.
It was just me sitting in my house, probably on my couch, and I'm just like, Libs of TikTok. So that's how Libs of TikTok was born. And then, once I was on TikTok so much, finding, like I said, just COVID stuff, I started seeing all this other content. And that's really when I started getting alarmed, because you had all these teachers and the doctors and the activists and just like the sheer like mental illness that was on display was just so shocking to me. So I started sharing some of those videos, and to me, I felt like America didn't know how bad the situation was, and it kind of felt like I was warning people, and I felt that was important. So I just started sharing it, and then the account just grew and grew and exploded. I started sharing more and more stuff. I started getting messages from people, can you help me expose this? The amount of support I got was incredible, because people had never seen this, and I think they were shocked out of their minds. It was also, I think, very validating for a lot of people, because a lot of these mothers knew that something was off in the schools, especially coming straight out of COVID, when they saw the classroom with their own eyes, on their kids' computer in their house, and they saw something was wrong. And then I come along and I share this content, and they're like, oh, something is wrong. Something is seriously wrong with our education system. So I think the content really was validating for a lot of people, and also very shocking. And that really contributed to the growth of it.
It's like you have built for us a window into America's culture. That's what you've done, where you pick all the stuff and you're able to allow us to see sometimes things that the media doesn't want us to see. Sometimes, frankly, things that we don't want to see. But you're putting it in front of us, and eventually, some of us realize that we really have to react and do something about it. I'm curious, you're a couple of years into this company. Is it a company? Is that what you would call it?
At this point,
As a company, do you have employees? I mean, how does it function? What are you doing all day?
So basically all day I get tons of messages. I get thousands of messages a week. So I try to sift through all the messages.
Through where? Through TikTok? Are you on TikTok still?
No, I was banned from TikTok.
You're banned from TikTok. So Libs of TikTok is banned from TikTok. And so you do your research on TikTok separately through like separate account or something?
Yeah, like a burner.
And then, so how do people get in touch with you when they want you to expose something?
So Twitter DMs, Instagram DMs, emails. It's thousands. And I have some help with going through it and with research. So I do have some assistance. It's basically, for me, it's just 24/7, or actually 24/6, because I go offline for Shabbat.
Well, we're going to convince you to also take some time so you can start dating, and we can find you a good husband too. But we'll get into it. Wait until Peachy gets started here.
But yeah, it's basically like at this point, I feel very, very strongly and passionate about the mission that Libs of TikTok is doing. So, and the more I put into it, the more good comes out of it. So I spend as much time as I can basically going through messages and just trying to help people share their stories, listening to people's concerns. And occasionally something else comes up, like dodging some claims that I'm a murderer, or trying to convince people that I never called in bomb threats to schools. So there's also a little bit of that, which adds some spice.
How do you monetize, and how do you pay for that? Is it ad dollars?
Yeah, so we do ad dollars. I have a subscription-based newsletter, libsoftiktok.com, and that's run through Substack. I wrote a kids book. I do some speaking gigs. Now with Twitter's ad rev share has helped a lot, but it's really there's no big dollars behind it. It's 100% grassroots, and I have a lot of support from my followers who just really appreciate what I'm doing.
One of the things that the two of you have in common is that you both realize that you need to be very careful. You're stepping into this arena where people are going to attack you. And so you started as Libs of TikTok. You didn't use your actual name. And Peachy Keenan, I don't know if people know this, and if I'm allowed to say this, but your name is not really Peachy Keenan.
That's right. Breaking news.
I'm shocked. What's your name? I actually don't know.
Well, we're not allowed to say, but like you wanted to keep your name confidential, but then you got doxxed.
Yeah. So it started out anonymously and not for any specific reason. It was just, I don't know, like I just didn't see a reason to ever put my name or face out there. In general, I'm kind of like a private person. So ever since I was doxxed, like everything that happened after that is a little bit unnatural for me. But I never even dreamed of like putting a picture of myself out for the public. It's just it's not it doesn't come natural to me at all. So I wanted to keep it private, anonymous. A couple months in running it, I started seeing the absolute hatred of the left. Experiencing it firsthand, I was like, okay, I think it's smart to keep this anonymous. Because I mean, they're just absolutely vile. And then, about a year in, the reporter from the Washington Post, Taylor Lorenz, showed up at my house. So, and then, as we know, released my name. And basically doxed me, and then everyone knew who I was. The hatred that I got obviously only intensified.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
So she basically put your life in danger. Have you considered confronting her on that?
I have. I would love to confront her one day. I don't know. We'll see.
Get an apology at least.
Well, we're going to
Yeah.
see how that confrontation goes. So, Peachy, not your real name.
Nope.
But tell us a little bit about your agenda of being a domestic extremist.
Yeah, so I started writing under a pseudonym almost 5 years ago now, because I was working at Disney, and I wanted, they could not know how I felt about things like mothers who want to stay home and raise their own children, or about politics, or about abortion, or all these things. I was not allowed to talk about it, work, let alone even have those very dangerous thoughts. And then when I wrote the book, the idea came to me because I was seeing places like the FBI targeting trad Caths, and I'm a Catholic, and they were, rounding up pro-life activists. And I was like, that's so weird. These people are being called literally domestic terrorists for going to mass. And then at one point, Merrick Garland, Attorney General, sicked his DOJ on parents, the parents who were speaking up at in the videos that you were posting at school boards demanding an end to mask mandates, and they didn't want to take the vaccine, and why is there pornography in our library? And the DOJ memo called those people domestic terrorists, domestic extremists. And I thought, well, that's a perfect title for a book. And I like to say, I'm not a domestic extremist, I'm just extremely domestic. And that's what gets us in trouble. If you're a mom who decides to stay home, you don't want to send your kids to daycare full time, you want to nurse your own children, you want to take a hand in their education, you don't want them experiencing the teachers that Libs of TikTok exposed, you are a bad person. You are now a criminal. If you teach your children, guess what? There's only two genders. You are going to be potentially even arrested and have your children taken away from you. So the title is ironic, but there's a real grain of truth to it.
How did you become so normal, despite the fact that you grew up in California, right?
In LA.
Did you go to a fancy college?
I went to an Ivy League college. Yeah. I did. Mm-hmm.
So you went to an Ivy League college, you worked for Disney.
That's right.
Was there a moment where you're like, wait a second, the world has gone upside down and I'm going to have to speak about that?
Well, there was sort of two awakenings I had, because through high school and college, I was sort of a basic liberal Democrat, but my politics were very, skin deep. They were very shallow. I didn't really pay any attention to it because, I'm Generation X. We didn't care about politics. That was not what it is today, this great big reality show. And then after 9/11 was really when I kind of awakened my latent patriot or whatever, although now that word has a little bit of different definition. And I became more of a political conservative. But then when I met my husband, I was a single woman living in New York City, and he was the first pro-life conservative that I had ever not only met, but been in a room with. I had never met anyone. And I'd come out of college as a basic feminist. I was pro-choice. I wanted to spend my 20s, avoiding pregnancy, avoiding marriage at all costs, maybe one day. I didn't really care. I just wanted to have fun with my friends, focus on my career. And really meeting him and the process of, him wooing me and me overcoming my like, oh no, he likes guns. He thinks abortion is bad. What will my friends think? I mean, I really knew that dating this guy would kind of, drive them away from me. And guess what? It did. It really did. It was like, there was crazy tension between like my Sex and the City girlfriends and my like conservative boyfriend, fiance. But I just, true love found a way. And here we are now. We both converted to Catholicism and we have 5 children. And we do all of this living in Southern California.
So yours is a story of, kind of like changing your mind, basically.
Yeah,
I mean, you
for sure.
you were basically a leftist, right?
100%. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're part of
Not
that.
far left, but like, a Democrat, for
Right.
sure.
I guess feminism is an interesting subject here because feminism either has taken a turn or has fully fallen off the hill. Right? You were a feminist?
Yeah. And all my friends were too. And that was just sort of, it wasn't even that we were taught that, you just absorbed it from the culture. There was just it would never even have occurred to you to not be for women's equality, to think men were not necessary for a marriage, to, marriage is an option, but it's really not something that you need, even if you want to have children. The main focus was careerism. I mean, we just like absorbed that from the culture. And it really requires, at least for me, it required a kind of like, thunderbolt sort of wake me up from that. And the real, I took my final form as like a domestic extremist really not until I had my first child. I mean, nothing could have prepared me to actually experience holding this infant. I had only been married like a year or so when we had him. And I'd already gone through a miscarriage. So that was sort of like, oh, this is real. Like an unborn child is a potential child. Like when I lost that baby, it really woke me up. And then when I held my son, who's he's 18 now. It's very sad. I realized I didn't know this before. No one told me. I love babies. I had no idea. I had never even held a baby since my little sister had been born many years earlier. I had never even like been close to a baby. And so I didn't have babies around. There was my culture, my world where I lived here in, my kind of coastal elite West LA neighborhood, there was no children. And so it was sort of shocking. And I realized what I almost missed out on. I was in my early 30s and I realized, okay, I don't just want to have one. I want to have a bunch and I have to hurry. And I really feel like I escaped feminism by the skin of my teeth.
Wow.
Do you think feminism has gotten worse and more extreme when it comes to, Gen Zers or millennials? Did it just, get worse from we were taught career first, but still have a family.
Right.
It feels to me now that especially online, but even on college campus, that there is this toxic mom culture. Or I don't know if you've heard the term dinks. Double income, no kids. Mm-hmm. And so like, it's so wonderful. And you talk about how so much of your transformation has been associated with the experience, right? You met the man, you had the children, and then you knew better.
Right.
But if you go online and you're convinced that you never even want to meet the man because you don't need a man.
Right.
Besides, what's a man if you don't even know what a woman is, right? And like you don't even want children because children are parasites on planet Earth. By the way, am I exaggerating? Because when I say this stuff, I get attacked by the media. They say that I am making this up. Young women are not being told this stuff. And I'm just completely exaggerating.
You're not exaggerating, but they do change the wording. So they'll say women are not being told that. They're being told something else. And I think this is kind of how they popularize this form of feminism is because the left is really good at marketing. So they don't call it what it actually is, which is lonely, old, childless, and just, void of any meaning. They call it empowerment and freedom. But that's why it's so important to teach people how to see through the left's language. And they do this with everything, right? Gender affirming care, let's call it what it is. Sex change surgeries and irreversible puberty blockers stunting kids' growth. Banned books, let's call it what it is. It's porn in schools and pictures of gay sex for middle school children. So that's something that the left is really, really good at. And I think that part of what we have to do better is to educate people about that and dig through and reveal what the truth actually is.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about language, Peachy, I think so much about you because you just have this whimsical way about you. I mean, maybe it's one of the good things that happened from, you working for Disney, right? But I mean, I love your Twitter X account because you have, these great ways of talking about the truth in a non-intimidating way. How do we win back this conversation, the culture, like even when we talk specifically when we're talking about one of the most important things, which is male-female relationships, right? It's how do we have a country if we don't have children, right? And if we don't have actually proper marriages and families.
You're right.
I mean, thoughts about that.
Yeah, that's why I wrote my book to try to pull us out of the nosedive. We're in a population collapse. People are not having children. I mean, especially if they look at the Libs of TikTok teachers, they might think, oh, I don't ever want to have kids and send them to those schools. So I'm out.
I hope no one thinks that.
No,
Please
just kidding.
go
It's
have
all
kids.
your fault.
Go have kids, just don't send them to schools.
Exactly.
And
Homeschool them.
they think that having kids hurts the environment, the carbon footprint. And I like to tell people the truth. And I feel like one of my sort of like strategies is to sort of make this stuff fun, make it funny, maybe. I mean, there's some like dark truths here, like really dark existential, black pills that we're dropping, but you can kind of wrap it up in a little bit of sugar and make it entertaining and fun. And for, I live with a bunch of Zoomers and they are very good at detecting like truth from BS. And they will look at some like crazy, like, the euphemisms that the left uses for things, and they'll just be able to cut right to like what it actually is. They sort of remind me of Gen X. They're like a little bit cynical in that way, at least the ones I know, which maybe are not indicative of like all of all of Gen Z. But I think that it's working. I mean, at least there was a survey a few weeks ago or last month about Gen Z boys versus girls, and the younger boys are actually trending much more conservative. The girls are trending way more liberal. Feminism is working on them like a charm. And now it's in its second or even third generation. These are the granddaughters of the, sort of like the 60s, 70s boomer feminists. And they now, they don't know even what a woman is. They don't know what gender they are. They don't know what sexuality they are. They don't even know if they're human, right? They're like non-binary furries. But the boys, I think, are being red-pilled, are being more conservative because they're around these girls. And they are like, no, like, that's not, there are only two genders. And they are trying to date these women. And they're learning, I think, through hard experience that these girls are like off the deep end. So I have more faith right now in the younger male generation. The girls need some work.
Well, I'd imagine the men are starting to speak up because they have literally been attacked. I mean, between Title IX and this, you get to speak last because you're a man, your merit doesn't matter. We only have a quota for 50% of you. And so it doesn't matter how hard you work. The attack is so direct on them. It's very visible. Yet I think that the women are suffering even more from this culture war and even more from this supposed feminist narrative. Who's benefiting from feminism?
Right.
Not the women.
Right. The men.
Not the moms. Right. Because, I mean, think about it. I know in your book, you write about this as well. The people who are benefiting from feminism are the big corporations who have basically women who are willing to work all day long and not take time off for kids and not have kids and not be distracted by children. Right. It's like, just freeze your eggs.
Freeze your eggs.
That's why all these companies pay for their employees to get abortions. Because then, they don't have to give maternity leave. They're not losing their employees.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help the woman.
And then male predators who never want to settle down, right? I'd imagine maybe they win from this feminism, but certainly not the women.
I mean, every woman on Tinder, on the dating apps, is on birth control, and everything is being underwritten by abortion, just in case. So a man has no incentive anymore. Unless he's like literally raised like a fundamentalist religious household. A regular guy off the street has no incentive to marry a woman, to take precautions, to not just be this like very promiscuous person. And then women don't have any There's no guidelines there either. We've removed all the guide rails. And so you see women, I think you've posted some of these videos of women, young women bragging about their, body counts of how many
Explain
men
what
they've
body
been.
count is, because it
so gruesome.
actually, I'm not online enough to know what that means.
I'm so
and
jealous of you.
It sounds
Right?
like a horrific.
Yeah, it's this gruesome, serial killer phrase for how many sexual partners you've had. So you have young
women are collecting
their
ledgers of people
ledgers
they slept with.
I've seen women over 100, like numbers are
I've seen like
ugly.
close to 300 in a year.
Wow.
I'm like, you got to be busy every single day. Like,
they post
what
this
kind of
on
life is
social.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a virtue. It's a kind of virtue signal. It's like this very kind of dark feminism.
And then they're praised.
But what
Everyone else
happened to the
praises
slut
them
shaming?
and-
Oh, that's gone.
Has gone.
Slut pride.
Slut pride.
It's like pride parade for sluts these
They're
days.
going to add like another S to the LGBT, whatever.
S, add an S in there, a double S.
Yeah, they'll need a flag.
Because they're going to say that they're now like a, minority.
Persecuted, yeah.
Persecuted.
That's
Well, as
funny.
long as they remain a minority, I hope it doesn't become a majority. It's just awful.
Yeah, and then they end up
Marginalized.
Yeah, then they end up child-free, and that is sold like as this liberation. You don't need to waste your money. But what they also are not telling these women is that, anti-depression rates for women, especially unmarried, childless women in their 50s and 60s, has never been higher. It's literally like the highest rate ever of older women resorting to antidepressants and other drugs that aren't good for you to kind of mask whatever has, they lost out on or missed out on. It's really sad.
What would you say to these young women going into college? Like, how do we inoculate the
Don't let them go.
Don't go to college.
Peachy? Yeah, don't go to college.
Go to trade school
real.
if you have to.
Yeah,
Or pick your colleges very, very specifically.
Or go online. Like I did online college.
You did?
Yeah, I didn't go to college like on campus.
Libs of TikTok U. Partnership with PragerU.
Let's start another enterprise, right? You know what? I mean, really, seriously, I think it's not just in college, right? It's in our culture, and I think that when you understand the nefarious agenda behind the concept of feminism, and you are able to explain this to a young woman, maybe a light bulb will go on. Maybe if they understand who really benefits from feminism, and who actually gets hurt by feminism.
I mean, it's sort of like a little bit reassuring. I have seen some videos come out of young women saying like, I think this happened when the new Snow White remake was getting all this heat, and the star was saying like, I'm going to redo Snow White. She don't need no man, and kind of rejecting like just a feminist Snow White. And women were posting reaction videos saying, well, what if I like do want a man? Is that okay? Like you dismantling the whole like prince, happy ending, like fairy tale. But what if I want that? And these are like young, kind of basically feminist women who are finally saying, but I still want this because I do believe, and this is what I think the book is, I think that desire is kind of inborn in people. It's just the most natural, normal, human thing in the world to want a connection with another person. I mean, this is just like not even, why are we rethinking that? Like, why are we breaking that
like the normal
desire in people? And we have broken it. And that's why you're seeing these women like really lose their minds.
Are you seeing this new movement called trad? They were like, I'm trad, so I'm looking for a traditional man or I'm looking for a traditional woman. And it's like a new label that people, I don't know if it's supposed to be normal people that are trying to find other normal people who don't want to have all the letters of the alphabet by their name. But is that something that's like going
I have
online?
seen videos like that.
Like the trad.
It's definitely not a trend.
Not a trend.
No, I don't think so.
What I was seeing, and I actually wrote something on Substack about this, is that we were seeing young women who were married but didn't have any children, but they were kind of doing it as a LARP. They were dressing as like a 1950s perfect housewife and making pies, and they got like so much attention because they looked like sort of these Marilyn Monroe clones, and they're kind of busty and pretty, and they were kind of glamorizing like really a 1950s housewife life, but they didn't have any of the like real stuff going on. There was no laundry going, and there's no little kids screaming. And so I wrote this article like, well, I actually do know a lot of trad wives. These are women who stay home and they make do on one income, which is really difficult to do these days. It's a huge sacrifice. They want to be there with their little kids. And trust me, they are not dressed up. They do not
And
have
they're
makeup
also
on.
not making TikToks.
Do not have time for
No.
TikTok.
They are not
The
on
ones who
social
are on
media.
TikToks are not real trad wives.
If you're
Right.
setting up your phone for your video of like, get ready with me.
Yeah.
It's a
trad wife,
good point. If you claim to be traditional and you're on TikTok, you're
Yeah.
obviously not really traditional.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, the ones who are on TikTok are kind of making like a mockery of it and a skit.
Okay, they're making
that
fun
they
of
get
us
clicks
women
and-
who want to have
Yeah.
children and what
Like
you
she
and I
said,
call
like they'll
normal.
put on like the 1950s dress and it's just a skit.
Right.
But real trad wives, I mean, it's not a social media trend, but hopefully it's a trend in the real world.
Right. Maybe if you can make it like kind of a trendy thing that looks cute, maybe it does make it sort of appealing. Like women can fake it till they make it, you know? They're just going to go for it anyway. Because we have to sort of do a little bit of our own version of like a psyop on younger women
Yes.
to break them out of like the feminist bubble. They're very tough nuts to crack.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever encountered like a young college age, very committed,
Oh, it's a cult.
militant feminist,
It's a complete
cult.
cult.
It's a religion, and they are, you know, they'll just take whatever the new thing is, whatever that like new cause is, they'll just go all the way. And now you're their new cause, taking you down. But they're going to come for all of us. And so we have to try to get them first before they become these like radicalized minions. Basically.
And that's the thing is like the real trad wives are not on social media.
Right.
So who is telling these young girls like you should get married? It's amazing. It's a blessing. Children are the best thing to ever happen to you.
Right.
You know, get your man. There's no one. I don't know if there are so many people out there on social media who are actually saying things like that. And I think there should be more.
Yeah, it's a tough dilemma. And I'd imagine you went through this as you decided to create, you know, the Peachy Keenan brand basically, because we don't want to be on social media. You know, we think it's a cesspool, but we also realize that we have to save our children from what they're experiencing there. And so if we completely retreat and don't show up and don't teach important things, then how are they ever going to learn it? And like, then I think about you spending hours in the cesspool, and I worry about you actually. Like I worry about you consuming all of this vile garbage and content. And
you know, I had an assistant who actually left. He's like, I'm sorry, I just
couldn't
can't handle the content. And I was like, I'm so used to it. I didn't even realize that for someone else coming in, it's how it could really affect you as a person.
How do you handle that? How do you spend so many hours in the vile cesspool and just still come out happy and positive and, you know, wanting to live and cute?
I think there's so many wins along the way, and I'm very specific and intentional about celebrating them, even if they're small. And I think that really helps me. And at this point, it's been 2.5 years. So I think I'm immune. I think I'm immune. I really do.
I think that there is a playbook for it. To me, it's the Torah. It's the Bible. I know that I know that you keep the Sabbath. And I think the Bible helps us by grounding us and giving us timeless truth, which is not what you will find on social media. And so, you know, you hold your faith close to you. It helps you navigate through this. And when I speak to a lot of moms and dads, as they're navigating through raising children right now, and the school system's doing everything possible to get the Bible as far away as possible from us and from our children, I think actually going back to some of these, you know, traditional, timeless truths is what's going to help us get through this. You know, some of my closest friends have been accused as domestic extremists because they simply showed up to a school board meeting saying that they don't want to have pornography in their kids' classrooms, and they have been attacked. And so it is so difficult. How did we get to this point where true criminals who are actually shooting people and stealing things are considered victims, and true heroes like parents who want to take care of their children are considered now criminals?
I think what you're saying is so true about religion, though. And I have actually a chapter about this, that if you can manage it, having some grounding in faith, like actual belief, is for me the cheat codes to parenting. It puts parenting on easy mode because it reinstalls kind of these ancient, timeless guardrails, and you have like a lot of the decision making sort of taken care of for you. And you also have a reason why you're saying no to things. Why can't you wear that outfit out of the house? Why can't you, let your booty hang out of the shorts? Why don't we want to, let you date and put you on the pill at 14? A lot of my liberal friends, they get their daughters on birth control as soon as they get their period. 12, 13 years old. Okay. So when you're, as a devout Catholic, I now have reasons why chastity, why modesty, why these things are important. And honestly, I have found that one of the most powerful things that we've done, and again, my husband and I are both converts. We were both raised completely atheists, secular atheists in LA. And now we have 5 devout Catholic children who they'll yell at me if I don't kneel exactly on time at Mass. They're very diligent about it, which is amazing. It works. But I really have found that if you can teach little kids the value of life, if you can make them pro-life at a young age, I feel like that's the vaccine. I feel like that is the immunization that can kind of power them through and so that the kind of the leftist feminist messages bounce off them. I mean, nothing's perfect. Nothing is foolproof, but I feel like it's such an effective antidote. And really, how many do we have? We don't have that many antidotes.
Yeah, I know for me, my belief in God guides everything I do in life. So, I don't have children yet, but when I do, obviously that will guide it. When I do get married, my belief in God is going to guide that. But even in my work now, it is 100% guided by my belief system, which I think helps keep you grounded. And it helps me stay on track. And I also believe that the only reason I'm in this position right now is because God wanted me to be. God has a plan. Nothing happens by accident. And I think God put me in this position and gave me this mission. And I really believe that. And that's what keeps me motivated every day.
It's definitely helpful when you realize that you're not doing things alone, right? And that you have, God with you, but like you say, not having to reinvent a manual that has already been divinely inspired and given to you. I mean, the hubris that every generation experiences, right? It was we're all going to reinvent everything, and everything that came before us is complete nonsense because we know the truth, and the government and the culture is going to invent something better than something that has lasted forever.
Yeah. I get asked, why do you do this? Aren't you afraid? How do you deal with all the hate? I don't get it the way you do, but I definitely get it. And I just go back to the great Catholic saints and martyrs. And, I quote Joan of Arc in my book. This is nothing compared to what people have done and what have fought for and died for what they believed in, or to protect, what they valued, their community, their faith, their families. People have experienced much worse than, getting called out on Twitter or getting, roasted by one of the libs from Libs of TikTok. And I think that without faith, I don't think I would have as much courage. And I think that you are an incredible inspiration for your courage. And especially after you got doxxed, I just remember being in awe of you. So kudos to you. But it really is, you're committing this great crime. We're all committing this great crime of noticing things. That is the crime. And that is what you're doing. You're just shining a light and then stepping back. And that is the crime. The crime is not what happened on the video, the grooming of children, the indoctrination, the genital mutilation of children. The crime is just taking a look at it and showing it to other people. And it's really amazing that we're in this position where the criminals, the bad people, the bad guys, the evil is being done. And the ones who they call evil are simply the ones reacting to it.
Well, they don't want us to react, and they want to control us with language. I mean, that's part of it. Part of it is we've given up the culture war because we've given up our rights to true language, right? If you don't actually, you can't really express what is a woman and what is a man and what is truth and what is lie. Then you create complete chaos, and we don't actually have language, and then you give up control over everything, right? If you have complete chaos in society, then who gets to step in and reconfigure everything? The government, the culture, the new people who come into place. You can't even be attracted to your husband anymore because that's considered some sort of cis
The
Craziness.
patriarchy.
I'm a husbosexual, Marissa. Don't forget.
Oh yeah.
You know what that means.
It is my favorite term ever. And how do we make husbosexual go viral?
Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, husbosexual means I'm only attracted to people who identify as my husband.
Oh.
So far that's just one person, but you never know.
What if some random
I know.
person says
Then
they
so far
identify-
so good.
So
Anyone
far-
could identify as anything.
Yeah,
That's right.
So I think it's brilliant in a way that in some ways we're kind of making fun of the fact that anybody is attracted to anything these days, and now that is their new identity, right? It's like I identify as a tree, and so therefore I'm a arbosexual.
It's all just about making people confused and getting them off track. It's sort of like how the New York Times is now their new beat is now polyamory and open marriages, and every week there's a new article just showing you the glories, how wonderful it is to be fully liberated from the harsh oppression of a marriage. You can be polyamorous. You can have 5 husbands. You can have 10 different boyfriends. You can have an open marriage. Isn't that just wonderful? Your kids want you to be happy. And so we're just, they keep diluting the message. These, again, the ancient timeless things have kind of kept humanity going through, extinction bottlenecks. These are important things that we need to keep doing, but they keep kind of distracting everyone with this, like, don't FOMO, don't miss out on this. You don't want to do that. And people are really lost. They burned the map, the roadmap to human happiness.
Yeah. This is why, and I'm going to say a trigger word. In a way, I hope that like Taylor Swift marries Travis Kelce and talks about how amazing it is to be
Taylor
married.
Swift the trigger word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I wrote about this too, actually.
Everyone has different views on her. But that would be great. And if she starts saying like, look, I have the best husband. It's so amazing to be married.
Right.
He takes care of me and then has kids. Like, what could be better for all those young girls who are being brainwashed in college to start realizing and like waking up?
That's so interesting. I wrote a Substack about Taylor, and my same hopes that if she somehow got engaged, then these legions of young Taylor Swift fans would suddenly realize, oh, it is okay. It is okay maybe to like find the one. I mean, because all of her music. I brought my daughter to her concert here. I've been following her, and I've mixed feelings about her. But all of her songs are about this kind of very kind of normal, basic female desire to find true love. I mean, basically every single one of her songs is I'm looking for true love. He hurt me again. Why can't I find true love? Where is he? And that's sort of like the message of all her songs. And if she actually does get to the end of her, finds her pot of gold, I mean, what will happen to those women? Like, will it trigger a baby boom?
I think so.
Although, I'm not 100% sold on Mr. Kelce. So I have to say, I
don't care who she marries.
As long
as she just gets married and starts talking about how amazing
I think somebody like Taylor Swift obviously has a huge impact on the culture. I have girls and they listen to her too. One of the things that I've learned over the years working with, celebrities is that as much influence as they have on other people, they're very much influenced by their own followers. And it's actually harder to do the right thing when you're a celebrity because you are so addicted to the affirmation that you get from the masses. It really becomes your new currency because you made all the money you need to make, right? You make a ton of money, but there's this addiction that develops from being in that spotlight constantly. And the moment the light moves a little to the side, I see these celebrities just do anything possible to get the light back on them. And we need to keep that in mind, especially when raising our young girls, to not put any celebrity really on this kind of pedestal, given that they're very reactive to the masses.
They'll go where the wind is blowing.
They have to. That's what they've been trained to do.
It's so funny because the difference, I think that something that we share is that I never wanted like my face out there. Like before this book came out, my picture was never anywhere. I never sought this. It was very like awkward for me to like have to go on a book tour and like reveal myself. But I still have the protection of a pseudonym. And so, now it's like, I mean, it's sort of getting chipped away, but I think that, we're sort of like still semi in the shadows. We're not out there giving these huge concerts and, seeking fame. But I do think that when someone like Taylor Swift or a giant celebrity does come out and say anything even remotely a little bit on our side, people go wild and they cheer like, oh, we finally found one. Do they like us?
Yeah.
Like,
Accept
kinda.
us. Accept us.
Yeah. It's so hard though for our side because we don't have any big major figures, sort of mainstream figures.
But Peachy, I think part of this whole point is that we shouldn't need to have that, and we actually should reject having that. Like my goal in life, raising my kids.
We have you.
No, I don't want to be that. And I don't want you to really be that. Like we can be there as guides. But the guidance that I actually want to give the public is that as a parent, your goal is that when your child grows up and they're asked, who's your role model? They don't go through some Rolodex on social media and find some famous person who they don't even know, right? Who impacted you the most? Who inspires you the most? My mom. I want my son to grow up. And when he is asked, who inspired you the most? Who impacted you the most? I want him to say my dad.
Right.
And frankly, that's the way it's supposed to be, right? That is what a parent is that person that impacted their child the most. And there's this role reversal that has been created by this entire system. I say this as an educator. I basically taught forever. And as an educator, we have sold parents on this idea that parents cannot teach their children. And as a culture, we've sold people that their role models are these absolute strangers that are frankly manipulated by an industry. Like they've been made famous by an industry. Why should they be the role models? The role models are the parents.
Parental authority has atrophied so much. But I think this is why you have been so powerful, because you really are giving parents back the power. You're really making them feel like, I'm not alone. This teacher is a nut. Like, I need to get my child out. Have you felt like parents are actually moving schools or like changing their children's lives based on what they see that you're showing them?
Yeah, I get tons of messages along those lines. And
that's amazing.
And whenever people ask me like, what's your advice to parents who can't homeschool? Because there are probably thousands and thousands of parents who want to homeschool, but they just can't, which is very understandable. I'm just like, look, you just have to be more involved. Like you have to know the curriculum that they're being taught in every single class. You have to look over all of their homework every single assignment that they're being sent home with. Every single day, you have to go through with them their day. What happened that day? What did the teacher say? Because they're really going to they're trying to get to your kids through the schools. So the parent has to really be very, very involved at every single step of the way.
So final notes. Peachy, what advice can you give to parents? Because I know one of the reasons why you wrote this book is to save the culture, save the women, save the moms. I want anybody who's listening to this conversation to realize how important it is to follow both of your accounts on social media, even if they're not on social media. Find a way to read what you have to say and tap into what you have to show, because we have to be aware. This kind of numbness of inaction has to end, but we can't afford it, right? And it's really a charge that I got from reading your book. We can't afford to sit on the sidelines and hope that the problem's going to go away. Do you have any other thoughts of what could somebody do after following you, being inspired by you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one thing to say get married and have kids, but like what you were saying, you want your goal of parenthood is that one of your children will think of you as their role model one day. I like to maybe tell people, live your life now so that when you in 30, 40, 50 years look back, you won't have these big regrets. I'm a child of a boomer divorce. And so that kind of was not fun, not pleasant, but it did teach me one important lesson, which was when I'm grown up, when I'm married, I won't make any choices that will permanently, irrevocably hurt my kids. It's very basic, but people now treat parenthood and marriage as just this, like, whatever, I'm out for me, whatever makes me feel good in the moment, whatever I need to do, the kids will be fine. They'll be fine. They won't be fine. And so my advice to parents is, if you manage to get married and you find a spouse and you've managed to have children, it's your job to think 30, 40 years from now, how will they think of you on your deathbed? And people don't like to talk about that. But life is very short. Life goes very, very fast. They grow up, and will they take care of you? Will they want to be around you when you're a grandmother? Will you get grandchildren? I'm in this for the grandchildren. And that is like sort of my big goal. I want to have as many as I can. And I'm ready for Grandma Peachy mode. And so that is my like number one advice.
I love that.
Guess how many cousins I have?
How many?
First cousins, like 350.
What?
Yeah.
Domestic extremist right here.
A domestic extremist.
Wow.
Well, your parents must have been domestic extremists too.
And you'll be joining them soon, right? I'm sure. Contributing to the pile.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully very soon.
Well, Chaya is single, so DM me if you'd like me to matchmake. It's one of the things I like to do on the side.
Okay.
So
Nice.
Well, you'll definitely be invited to my wedding.
There's going to be a Mr. Libs on TikTok.
How big will your wedding be with all of these cousins?
I don't know. My siblings' weddings had like 300 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they live all over the world.
Wow.
You know? But yeah, I'm very used to kids. I've 7 siblings. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a ton of nieces and nephews and tons of cousins. So I've been around kids my whole life. So to me, it's like a no-brainer.
Right.
Obviously, I want a big family.
You got a person who wants children, totally gets it. I mean, the whole show could just have been The Bachelorette right here.
We could do a reality dating show for me.
Yeah, but I
Prager Bachelorette.
Okay. Vote if you want it. Selfishly, I want to ask you one last question, and that is about social media. You know, it as adults, maybe we're more prepared to spend some time on social media in order to see what's going on. I know you're doing that and I'm doing that because we feel like it's really it's our responsibility to tap into the front lines and see what is happening. But if you could give advice to parents who have kids who want to be on TikTok or on social media,
I think I know what she's going to say.
what is your advice? I mean, because you're on it. And you were on it.
Yeah. I actually campaigned to ban TikTok. I fully support banning TikTok.
So Libs of TikTok wants to ban TikTok.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It might make things a little difficult for me, but it's okay. I'll figure it out.
You'll give up the entire enterprise for the sake of America.
So here's the thing, is a lot of these people are also on Instagram, and it's pretty much the same content. But TikTok is, first of all, Chinese spyware. So I don't think it should be in America. But I think China's using it as a weapon to destroy us from within. And they have different algorithms, and the way they're doing it is that when kids join, they are automatically fed all this nonsense, like the anti-American values and all the gender confusion stuff. So I definitely think that TikTok should be banned. After that, maybe we have to have a conversation about other social media companies and what their algorithms look like if they're specifically targeting a demographic with a specific message that is, anti-American. But there's no reason why a Chinese spyware app should be in America.
Do you spend any time on YouTube as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that where you find some of your content?
Some stuff, yeah.
So one of the arguments I'm starting to have with my kids who are hearing about other kids being on YouTube is they say, well, there is YouTube Kids.
Oh, no, it's very dangerous.
Okay, tell me about YouTube Kids.
Yeah. I get so many messages about YouTube Kids and tons of screenshots from parents all the time, like multiple times a week. I get it. And they say, I'm absolutely shocked. I let my kid on YouTube Kids because it's supposed to be safe, and there are pride flags all over. There's all this gender nonsense, and it is, it's not safe for kids.
What about putting in any of the restrictions or the filters or, whatever the terminology is? Is there a world where you would hand a cell phone with social media, let's say, to a 13-year-old child?
Never. Not my kid, no.
Not with any of the filters and no tricks and shticks and nothing?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
It's basically like throwing them at a mall, knowing that there are a bunch of predators running around and just walking away and letting them fend for themselves.
Yeah, pretty much. Unless something drastic changes. I'm still years off from having a 13-year-old kid. But
you're an expert. You really are an expert in this social media space. You're on it all day long. So if you're telling me that through your expertise and all your research, we should really protect our kids. I think it's a pretty serious comment.
I get messages, and I'm talking about hundreds over the past 2.5 years. All of these, even like the gaming sites like Roblox and Fortnite and like I said, YouTube and Instagram. I get messages all the time from parents. They're like, I'm absolutely shocked. I let my kid have this, and they're just being fed all this gender nonsense from everywhere. Like nothing is safe. Nothing is safe. I mean, PragerU videos are safe.
Right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right.
And you guys do have some like entertainment video stuff for kids. So I think that's really great. We need to do more of that and promote more of those types of content, because I don't think anything that's really out there that's like the mainstream is safe for kids.
Yeah, including Disney or any of the
Obviously
kind of classic
Disney,
traditional
Netflix.
brands.
We know, they're just embedding this everywhere from the youngest age possible.
So on top of banning your kids from all of this stuff, imagine being one of her kids and asking for a phone one day. But on top of banning it all, keeping it out, it still will seep in. So the other thing you need to do is immunize them and prepare them and kind of strengthen their own defense mechanism so they can recognize it and walk away from that stuff. When the time comes.
Yeah. And that comes from having very strong and involved parents.
Yeah. You want strong kids, you have to have strong parents who are willing to say, I'm a domestic extremist.
Willing to say no.
Or I'm a white Christian nationalist Barbie, or whatever it is that they want to call us. I don't really care. I'm protecting my kids.
I want to see Barbie dolls of all three of us. That'd be great.
Yeah, well, it's much better than the Barbie doll of the Laverne Cox that is going on right now in so many stores. I mean, apparently, what is it? A woman can be anything she wants.
Right.
But what is a woman? And so now Barbie is also a trans man.
Right.
Well, I hate to end on a very, very sad note, but I also think it's a very convicting note. And that is, we have to take charge and we have to be okay with whatever labels they throw at us. And so, they can come and attack us. We're just going to get stronger.
Yeah.
That's right. Cheers.
If they're not attacking you, you're doing something wrong.
There you go.
Cheers, ladies.